In war, there are two kinds of silence: the kind that comes after a bomb drops, and the kind that comes when no one is left to tell the story. He held a camera, not a weapon. He told the world what the wounded could not say, and on a quiet night in Gaza, he was silenced. Anas al-Sharif, a journalist for Al Jazeera, died when the strike hit a tent marked for media, a tent marked for truth. The official story said it was a mistake. The footage said otherwise. And what followed was a battle not just over land, but over the meaning of a life caught in the lens. This is not just a report, this is a question. When is killing the story part of the strategy? The tent, the camera, and the flash of war. Gaza City has become one of the most dangerous places on Earth for anyone holding a camera. For years, it has been a sun-baked mosaic of neighborhoods, markets, hospitals, and refugee camps. But in wartime, its roads are also front lines. Its hospitals become hubs of emergency medicine, and tragically, of scenes that journalists are obliged to witness and record. Into that tinderbox came a generation of reporters who treated proximity to truth as a professional imperative. Among them was Anas al-Sharif, a young Palestinian correspondent for Al Jazeera, whose face had become a familiar presence for viewers seeking to understand what life was like for civilians trapped in the siege. He reported from the rubble, from mass graves, and from makeshift aid lines. He carried a camera, a microphone, and the weight of a story he felt he had to tell. A night of shocks. On the night that would come to define a new wave of international outrage, several journalists were gathered in a tent pitched near Al-Shifa hospital, a makeshift media point where reporters and camera crews gathered, shared updates, and coordinated coverage amid the bombardment. Tent camps like these had become common, partly shelter, partly command post. Some held satellite uplinks, others were simply a place to charge batteries and file footage. In the late hours, what began as routine reportage into civilian suffering turned into tragedy. An Israeli airstrike slammed into the area, killing at least 4 Al Jazeera staff members, among them Anas al-Sharif and several photographers and camera operators. The images that emerged were stark and immediate: tents on fire, bodies pulled from the wreckage, colleagues weeping in shock. Al Jazeera reported the deaths as a catastrophic blow to independent reporting in Gaza, and the footage spread quickly across international news channels. Claims and counterclaims. The strike instantly opened a bitter dispute. The Israel Defense Forces asserted that the target had been legitimate, declaring that specific individuals killed were militants or operatives, and accusing them of being embedded with armed groups, effectively arguing that journalists were not always civilians in this conflict. Those claims were sharp and consequential. If correct, they would change the legal and moral calculus around the strike. But Al Jazeera and multiple press freedom organizations rejected the IDF's allegations, pointing out that the journalists were clearly marked, working in known media positions, and that there was no credible evidence presented to show they were combatants. CPJ, OHCHR, and RSF immediately demanded independent investigations and cautioned against labeling journalists as militants without publicly verifiable proof. Those calls were not rhetorical. They were an appeal to international humanitarian law that protects civilians and civilian infrastructure, including journalists in conflicts. What journalists do and why they are vulnerable. To understand the outrage, it helps to unpack what frontline journalists do. They document, they verify, they amplify. Their tools are cameras, satellite phones, and an ability to move through chaotic scenes to get testimony from survivors. That visibility makes them invaluable to the world's eyes, and it also makes them vulnerable. In conflicts where the line between combatant and civilian is blurred by propaganda and suspicion, the mere presence of a camera can be framed as complicity by one side or the other. The result, reporters are caught in a legal and moral crossfire where technical evidence and battlefield rumor can be weaponized to justify lethal force. The tent as an evidence scene. Forensic and open-source analysts pored over video and images in the strike's aftermath. Tents reveal small but crucial details: satellite dishes, press markings, camera tripods, cables, items that identify a place as media infrastructure rather than a militant staging point. In the footage from the strike, colleagues can be seen moving through the site moments before the explosion. Ambulances later arrive. Charred equipment is recovered. These visual traces are more than evocative film. They are forms of evidence. Press organizations argued that the visual record contradicted the IDF's assertion that the site housed militants or military command posts. Where one side saw a legitimate target, others saw a crime scene and scores of independent witnesses who had a right to be there. The fog of war, verifying what happened. In environments like Gaza, verifying facts is a twofold operation: on-the-ground witness accounts plus open-source verification. Satellite imagery, frame-by-frame analysis of videos, and radio metadata can all produce a timeline of a strike: when munitions arrived, what exploded, and who was present. But even rigorous open-source work can be constrained. Areas of bombing are closed off, hospitals and tents are subsequently destroyed or cleared, key witnesses are themselves victims. This practical reality complicates the path to a transparent truth. The photo evidence that points to a press tent 1 minute can be scorched ruins the next. In that speed, the ability to collect, preserve, and verify visual evidence becomes as crucial as the initial footage itself. Why this strike resonated worldwide. The killing of journalists in a place where so many were already dying became emblematic of a wider claim: that reporting itself had become a casualty of the conflict. The death of Anas al-Sharif and his colleagues was not only a human tragedy, it underlined the shrinking space for independent reporting in active war zones. For many, the strike signaled a shift from journalists being incidental victims to being central risks in modern asymmetric warfare. It raised the stakes for organizations that still maintain field teams. To stay, they risk death. To leave, they risk silence and abandonment of witnesses whose stories may never be told. The human toll: families, colleagues, and collective memory. Behind each headline is a human life. Anas al-Sharif was remembered by colleagues as persistent and fearless. His death rippled through the newsroom and the refugee communities he came from. Funerals became moments of communal grief and political statement. Funerals also became forums for demands for accountability. Survivors of the strike, wounded journalists, described the terror of seeing colleagues die and the surreal duty of having to pick up their cameras and document tragedies while their own trauma was fresh. For families, there is an additional dimension: the loss of a son, father, brother, or partner, a private grief that is then thrust onto an international stage. The killing of Anas al-Sharif and his colleagues is a stark reminder of the cost of bearing witness. In modern conflict, cameras do not render people invisible. If anything, they put them in the crosshairs. You're watching NightFall Witness, where silence gets cross-examined and every shadow has a source. Subscribe for stories that weren't meant to be told. War zones, cover-ups, courtroom ghosts.